What is up, Rave Raid fam? Welcome to another episode of the Rave Raid podcast with your host, Tyler Hardy. And as always, I just want to take a moment to express my overwhelming love and gratitude for each and every single one of you guys who tune in and listen on a daily and weekly basis to talk all things Rave Raid, self-improvement, spirituality, biohacking, psychedelics, everything that we talk about on this podcast with the main intention to help you become the most self-actualized and self-loved version of yourself that you can possibly be. So then that way you can express your gifts with the world and help make the world a better place, because right now it needs it now more than ever. And so hopping into today's episode, it was actually really interesting. I was recording this morning and my recording got interrupted by a phone call, and the episode was going just fine. But what was interesting about it was, I felt like the subject matter wasn't really super great quality compared to what we've been putting out for the past couple weeks. And so I just kind of let that go. I decided to go to the gym, and actually what ended up happening at the gym really gave me some good subject matter for the day. So sometimes things, when they don't seem like they're working out, they are working out in your greatest favor, even though it may not seem like it. And so on today's episode, I kind of want to talk about an experience that I had. And so I was in the sauna finishing up my workout, and a couple people came in and we started talking about some, conspiracy theory stuff, right? As some people would say. And we started talking about just like what's going on in the world. And we started talking about, the future of currency, future of money, future of, what's going on, what we're being led to believe, all these different things, right? What was interesting was I noticed there was a guy that came in like halfway through the conversation, and we started talking, and I was making a lot of really good points, right? I definitely spend a lot of time focusing on, searching for the truth, and I'm not perfect by any means, and I don't claim to be, but I made a comment about a currency, like what the future of the currency looks like, and he's like, what you're saying is contradictory. And what was interesting was once I was able to break it down and explain to him what my rationale was, he realized that I was right, and he admitted that I was right. But it was so interesting because the thing that I picked up on, and this is something I was talking to a good friend of mine about the other day, was oftentimes when people feel like it's a direct attack at them for some reason, or they identify to something, right? I identify to being a fan of a sports team, right? And then someone says something bad about the sports team. They become personally offended by those statements that are made because they identify to that team or that cause or that belief system or whatever it is that people seem to take personal attacks on for no reason. And I noticed that because like we had opposing views on things. I was still hearing what he was saying 100% and really responded to what his question was and really broke down on a deeper level why I believed what I believed, and he acknowledged that what I was saying was right. But interestingly enough, it was like he took that as a direct attack, or he took that personally. And what's interesting enough is, when you start to do the work and start to heal, you realize that when people project things onto you, it's generally, their ego being offended, or it's them being in a place where they feel like they're taking it personally. And then as a result of that, when you become more aware, you don't take that personally. Like when he was acting that way, I wasn't, oh my gosh, this guy's trying to argue and fight with me. It's just, hey, this guy is identifying to this. He thinks that this is right. And I'm going to share my point of view and hopefully it gets across to him. And there's been plenty of times where I've been on the opposite end of that too, because that's why I can speak on this, is because I used to get offended or think that people were personally, coming at me when they would say something that, maybe I identified to, or, a habit or something of mine that I was defending. And I would take it really personally. I get really sour about it. And I think a lot of people do that because we don't spend enough time, focusing on, understanding so we can respond. People just like to respond just to hear themselves talk. And I think that's a huge problem with what we're dealing with on this planet, is that people don't listen to one another. They don't value differences in opinions. And when we value each other, when we value our differences in opinions, it really opens up a great dialogue for different perspective. Because to think that one person knows absolutely everything perfectly is very unlikely. And it's very, I'd be hard pressed to meet someone who's completely right about every single thing, right? We're all wrong. We're human. We make mistakes. We only have limited perspective based on our life experiences. But what I'm wanting to get across here is this falls into the relationship component of the pyramid of self-mastery, is the importance of hearing other people and responding in accordance to what it is they're saying and being able to empathize and feel their emotions. Because by the end of the conversation, we were both in the same place. We both agreed on a lot of things. We're like, hey, you know what? We just want the world to be a better place. And we both agreed that the reason that things are going on in the world the way that they are is because people who are like us, we allow those things to happen, whatever it is. We allow things to be the way that they are because we tolerate those things in our life. We tolerate a lot of things on a personal level and as a collective. And so once we started talking more, it was a productive conversation. Like, he saw where I was coming from. He saw, some of the viewpoints of his beliefs that weren't right. And he was like really cool with it, which is awesome. I told him at the end of the conversation, I was like, that's a productive conversation. I appreciate your perspective, because it got me thinking too, because it made me really logically think about, some of the things that I was saying. Like, does that make sense? Does that seem true? And does that seem right based on the information that I know? And I think a lot of people just don't bother to do that. When two people are rooted in ego and they communicate with one another, it's a jaw match. It's a fighting match, right? And when you do the work, when you start, healing and meditating and becoming more aware of your reality, not taking things personally and just becoming the observer of your reality, you start to see, like, okay, maybe this guy had an experience that makes that belief system this, maybe this happened. Not knowing that, you've never walked in those person's shoes. Maybe if we spend some more time getting to the root of why someone is the way that they are, maybe we can have a deeper understanding of who they are, so that way we can empathize with them and relate more to them and potentially even help them, gain a higher level of perspective. Because I would say that by the end of the conversation, he had a higher level of perspective around some of the things that we were talking about. And other people do this for me all the time too. So this isn't one of those things where it's like, there's people that walk around and they say, hey, I know this and this and this and this, and if you don't listen to me, you're wrong. It's one of those things where it's like, I learn from people all the time. And the most successful, happy people that are living are the people who are always learning and always progressing forward, and also willing to step out of their own way when they realize that they're not right. There's plenty of things that I'm wrong about. I'm wrong all the time. I'm right about a lot of things, right? That's part of the human experience. It's part of humility. It's part of totality. It's part of being the entire life experience, is that we're here to learn from each other and love each other and support one another through our process of awakening. And it was really quite a fascinating conversation. And it's just one of those things where I think that was one of the big takeaways. It's just like, if I went into it and I was trying to be argumentative with him, we wouldn't have gotten anywhere, right? It just would have been two, middle-aged male figures, like, just going back and forth with one another, which is a lot like some of the things that are going on in our world right now, if you can think of some other examples. And nothing's getting done. Nothing's being accomplished. Nothing's being achieved. Once we got to the point of me expressing, like, hey, we're on the same team here, my guy. Like, we're here to help each other. I see what you're saying 100%. I think you're right about a lot of things, and I'm not invalidating what you're saying. I'm actually wanting to share some perspective about things that I know potentially are right. It might actually help you come to a better conclusion for yourself. And, it was productive. And I think that we're not having enough productive conversations in society because everything is designed to create duality. It's designed to keep each other fighting one another and in opposition to one another. No, you're wrong. No, you're wrong. No, you're wrong. No, you're wrong. And what that does is it creates separation. And if you know what I'm all about and like what I speak about and what we preach here at RAVER, is that we're all one. So when you think about this, when you create separation from others, even if you don't agree with them, you're creating separation from yourself in a different perspective. And it's an opportunity for each of us to help one another, gain a higher level of perspective, see things in a different light, see things in a different perspective, And it's one of those things where it's an opportunity for each of us to help each other grow and become more than what we currently are. And that's the purpose of the human existence. We're not different. We're all the same. We all come from the same source and energy. It's seeing through the illusion that we are separate that will ultimately free all of us. It's what's going to free people who are suffering. It's going to free us from our own, self-induced lack and struggle that a lot of us experience. It is knowing that we're not alone, that we're here to help one another, that when you help others, you're essentially helping yourself. And when you help others, it always comes back in kind. It always comes back in tenfold. The more I do for others, the more it keeps coming back to me. The more I serve, the more that I am served. It's just one of those things. We don't live in a world that's like that. Most people don't have that ideology or that mindset. And it's a real shame. And that guy made a really interesting comment. He's like, we started talking and leveling more. And it was never like an argumentative thing where it was like hostile or anything like that. He just kind of walked in. He's like, oh, you guys are talking about conspiracy theories. And I said, no, we're talking about facts. We're talking about things that are actually true. And, it was just one of those things. And he kind of calmed down after a minute. But long story short, he made a comment about, hey, I was like, we can make that change together, all of us. That's our responsibility. And he's like, yeah, we're just all so busy living our lives. And I was like, yes, by design. You're supposed to be busy. You're supposed to be stressed out. You're supposed to be worried. You're supposed to be disconnected from one another because you're weak. When we're all separate, we're weak. When we're together, we're very strong. We can create amazing things. We can solve all of the world's problems. If every single person on this planet just did the healing, they did the work, they wanted to become better in one way, shape, or form, if they did all of that stuff, guess what would happen? The world would be a better place. It would be healed. We'd be better examples for our future generations. The planet would be healthier. We would have less, stress, worry, anxiety, and fear in all areas of life. We could help one another become what it is that we're capable of becoming, but not when we decide to pull ourselves down into a lower frequency. The old me would have been in like more of an argumentative phase and been heated about the conversation, or, allowed my ego to get in the way of what otherwise could have been very productive conversation. That's what had happened, because it's about maintaining the perspective. It's about teaching others and giving others the ability to, potentially receive something if they're open to receiving it. And I think that's where a lot of people struggle, is they don't have a desire, or they don't realize they're blocking themselves off from potentially receiving truth or an uplifting message, or, positive affirmation or encouragement from others. I was one of those people for a very long time. I would close myself off to the world. I closed my heart off to the world. I allowed myself to go within myself and completely disconnect from others, to disconnect from myself, to disconnect from everything that was going on, because I wasn't willing to look at the truth. I wasn't willing to heal. I didn't think I could, but you can easily, effortlessly, when you allow it to happen, when you allow that love to come in, when you allow other people's perspectives to change you, if it resonates for you and it feels true to you. Because there's a lot of people that have perspectives that are not correct, that are rooted in ego, or they're rooted in something that's not for your highest good. It's for their highest good. So it's all about using discernment to feel what is true. Now, if I say all these things and that man doesn't feel, any particular type of way about it, or he doesn't resonate with that, then that's completely fine. It's about speaking your truth and not imposing your beliefs or your truth onto others. And that's a big problem we have nowadays, is everybody's so focused on telling other people how they should live, how they should feel, what they should think, what they should do, who they should socialize with, how they should make their money. They're so busy looking at other people and trying to fix what's wrong in others, when in reality, the thing that most people are trying to fix in others are what they should be fixing in themselves. And they should be looking at that truth in themselves. And so if that guy didn't take that perspective and it didn't resonate as true for him, what I was saying, then that's completely fine. It's not my job to try to change people's opinions. It's my job to share what I believe is true and what resonates from a heart-centered space. And if it's received, it's received. If it's not received, it's not received. And the same is truth on the other end. He made some really good points about things that, again, made me make sure that my perspective was more in order. What I was sharing made more sense. And so there was a net gain from that conversation. And there's so much to be learned from other people. There's so much to be learned from spending that time intimately and being present and focused on what the other person is saying, what they're potentially trying to teach you. What is the underlying gift that they're trying to show you? What is it what are they reflecting back to you? How could you be better? How could you become a better person because of that? I didn't walk into that sauna today thinking I was going to have a conversation like that. I walked out a better version of myself. That's how life works. When you're on the path of deciding you want to grow, become a better version of yourself, to heal, The universe brings you the experiences that help reflect that opportunity to identify, become aware, heal, transcend, and step into that next version of yourself. It's always happening. Every single day, every single moment of your life, you have the opportunity to make those choices. And I realize, it does no good if people are just arguing with one another, if they're opposing one another, just because. So many people oppose one another just for the sake of opposing one another, with no merit or actual legitimacy to the opposition. Just because people are programmed to not like one another, they're programmed to disagree with one another, they're programmed to live in duality, keeps you away from so much genuine connection with others, keeps you disconnected from your greatest potential, keeps you disconnected from a vital piece of yourself, which is everyone and everything. Now, granted, there are bad apples on this planet. There are people that are not good, that do not have the, interests of the whole at all, very rooted in ego, happens very easily when you don't realize that you're disconnected. But there are a lot of good people on this planet. There's a lot of people who want to help, that want to make the world a better place. And it's our job to find those people. It's our job to collaborate with those people. It's our job to gain perspective from those people and evolve and change in healthy ways and really uplift one another. And when we do that, that's when we start seeing those changes. That's where you start seeing collaborative projects. That's where you start seeing initiatives. That's where you start seeing people stand up and speak their truth and do the things that they know that they need to be doing. This podcast is a perfect example of that. These are things that I've known for years. And I've waited and waited and waited and allowed and allowed and allowed and tolerated and tolerated and tolerated myself not to do it because I didn't think I could or didn't think it was a good idea. But I'm here and I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing and it feels good. Just like you. When you do the things that you know that you need to be doing, then good things will continue to happen for you. The more that you live in your truth, the more the truth is going to find you. More things that are going to feel right are going to find you. And so don't be afraid to have those conversations. Don't be afraid to stand in your power. Don't be afraid to share your perspective. Don't be afraid to do what you know that you need to do. Those things that you put off are the things that you know you need to do. Those are the things that are going to put you, light years ahead of where you're at right now, very, very quickly. And I want that for you. And I am here to assist you in any way that I can to help you become what it is that I know that you're able to become. So what I want you to take away from this episode is, are you giving yourself the opportunity to understand other people on a deep level and yourself? Because the more deeply you have an understanding of yourself, the more you're able to understand it in others. The more you're able to see the truth in others and who they really are. Because you see it in yourself. The more work you do internally, the less work you have to do externally. And I'll say that one more time. The more work that you do internally, the less you have to do externally. What I mean by that is when you do the healing work, when you gain a higher level of perspective, when you start focusing on your attention, your focus, and your consciousness, and your discipline, and all the things that are really important in regards to living a high quality existence, you don't have to do as much. You still can work, you still work hard, but it's divinely guided. You know what's right, you know what's wrong, you know what the right direction is, you know what the wrong direction is, and you're able to use your own discernment and highest good to navigate and guide yourself through this human experience. And so ask yourself if you've been closing yourself off to that potential. Ask yourself if you've been not doing the work that you know that you need to be doing. And if you're not, then today's a great day to do it, because there's only the right now. There's no perfect time. Now is the perfect time. And now is always the perfect time. So trying to put things off does you no good. Should have been doing this for years. And now it's my opportunity to make up for lost time. And that's why I podcast every single day, is because I want to make up for that lost time. And I want to make sure that I'm delivering a healthy message to as many people who are ready to receive and hear it as possible. And so whatever it is that you're meant to be doing, it's time to get on to it. It's time to do it. It's time to be it. It's time to embody that. Because I know that you can do it. It's really as simple as making a decision and finding congruent action with that vision that you have for yourself. It's that easy. It's that simple. And so make sure that you're listening to the perspective. Look into what, the universe is trying to teach you and show you. Because it's trying to show you how to become less separate from the whole and trying to teach you how to be more whole within yourself when you pay attention and you look at what the truth is and you really start to dance the dance of life. And so I want you guys to, make sure you take anything that resonates for you in this episode, any good pieces of information or golden nugget, and then integrate it into your daily life. Because if we don't integrate, we don't change. And if we don't change, we don't get more of the things that we want and desire for ourselves. So when you change, you get more of what you want. When you change in the right direction, you're really going to get what you want. So make sure that you're integrating what it is that we're talking about on this podcast if it resonates as truth for you. That's the most important thing. It does no good to listen to these podcasts and then not do something with it. It does no good to read that book. It does no good to go to that seminar. It does no good to do any of those things if we're not embodying and integrating those things into our daily practice and becoming what it is that I know you're capable of becoming. And you know that you're capable of becoming, whether you deny it or not in yourself. So without further ado, guys, I'm Tyler Hardy. Be sure to check us out at www.drinkraver.com. We are seeing a bunch of exponential growth right now as a company, and it's because I believe that we are sharing the truth with people who are ready to hear the truth and want to become a better version of themselves. And I think that, more and more people are finding what we're doing and starting to resonate with that. And I really appreciate each and every single one of you who, supports what we're doing, buys our products, sends us nice messages, gives us feedback, everything that you guys do to help make this mission and movement a greater thing on a daily basis. I appreciate you, because without you, there'd be no point in me doing this. And so I know, the most important thing is you, and it's time to make sure that you are living in that congruence with your greatest potential. So without further ado, guys, hope you guys have an amazing day. Peace.